Hello, friends. It's John Clan III of episode 165 of Shadow and Flame of Magic, the podcast. And today we're going to deep dive into Exceptional X-Men issue 6, the Captain America Steve Rogers 5, and then discuss the other comics that came out last week. So let's get into it. Brr, 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 brr. So Exceptional X-Men 5, written by Evel Ewing, artist Carmen Carnero, color artist Nolan Woolward, letter VC's Travis Lantham, and then I got the Mark Brooks animated style variant coming my way. The island nation Krakoa was safe haven for all mutants. In order to defend mutant kind, Cape Pride was forced through violent extremes that had left her forever changed. But now that Krakoa is no more, mutants, including Cape, find themselves splashed across the globe, facing a hostile world that hates and fears them. Then last issue, Emma Frost and Kitty Pryde are co-training a trio of teenage mutants in the use of their powers. They receive some additional help from the fellow X-Man, Iceman. The team is training in an unusual dance studio led by Kitty's roommate, Preeti. A mysterious new app called V-Ray is promising to cure mutants if they submit their genetic material. Melee's young mutant cousin secretly submitted to the app, and Kitty and her crew remain suspicious of V-Ray's true purpose. And naturally, spoilers for this issue and all the issues that came out last week. And just to mention it, this is by far my favorite creative team going on right now. And so we see Kitty is filming um Iceman not attacking, combating the teenagers with attitude. And Emma's taking notes, which is cute because she has like literally a pen and a pad in her hands. And then we see this growl, or we it's comics. So we hear a growl, and Kitty and Emma are immediately on guard. And it turns out it's the teenagers, as they're very hungry with their teenage appetite. Then Melee mentions how they all took turns bringing snacks, as they don't want to depend on Emma and her money, which, like, she has such a perfect disgust on her face of, like, why would you ever want to not spend my money? I just love that. Like, yeah, these teenagers recognize a power imbalance and like, yeah, you're our teachers. Like, we shouldn't be depending on you for every single thing. And I just love the panel of Kitty putting her hand on Emma's shoulder to like comfort her. She's like, it weirds you out to know your needs are met. And it's just like, oh. And as I'm hearing my voice, I should state like I do have a bit of a cold, but now, so hopefully you're like, hey, sexy radio voice. I wish this would come back. Iceman asks for a chip, which Axel's like, just one, which reminds me of a Turtle Soup episode not too long ago where Ryan was talking about, like, what's the point of sharing one chip? Like, just so you get a taste of it, like, it doesn't, fend off any of your appetites. And then Axel puts his hand back in the chip bag and he's just like, ugh, these are all cold now. Where it's like, Iceman, you could depower every so often, come on. So Melee is quick to be like, hey, can you help us get jobs, right? And Emma's like, what happened to being independent? It's like, it's a tough labor market, which it is. Kitty likes the idea of them all getting jobs at the same place, which is awkward as, they haven't had to do it yet. But at one point, you know, the outside world is going to affect what they're doing. And it's going to be like, now you have three employees not there all at one day. Oh, hey, I don't think I noticed this, but Iceman got the chips back and he just committed to freezing them. And now he's just eating ice chips, which maybe is a more clever pun than I'm thinking it might be. And Emma's just like, they don't need additional responsibility. And then Petey's like, hey, I'm just using industrial washer, but if you guys are looking for jobs, we need interns. And Emma's like, surely you're joking. And Iceman's like, I love Preeti, and I do too. And we see it's a couple weeks later, they're all wearing just, civilian clothes and like very fancy. LeMayle's wearing shorts, but it's like, all right, but like a respectable vest. Bronze has her hair down and like, I don't know. I don't know fashion, so I don't know why I started describing. But she has like one of those old-timey like cowboy ties. I'm like, all right, this is fun. And speaking of fun, so they were in an elevator and no one pressed the button because they thought the other person pressed the button. It's like, oh, these three are like the best of friends, and I love them so much. And so we see that Preacher works at a like a marketing campaign, and so they have like tennis, ping pong tables or table tennis. They're, instead of chairs, they got beanbag chairs, and people are just working on benches and with their headsets on, and just, they're getting work done, but also keeping their mental space correct. Free team references a brief they should have read, and they're like, you never gave us one. And we get a fun moment in comics where the company's actually called Verate instead of Veritate. So I wasn't pronouncing it right at all because I thought it was like Verate, but it's fancier, I guess. So it's Verate. And they're not necessarily interns either. They're internal consultants, which is interesting. And then the Verate founder comes in. His name is Sheldon Xenos, Xenos, and he has an interesting physical mutation where he has ram horns coming out of his forehead that twirl around his ears and stick out. So they most likely you see those horns as he enters a room. He's a little confused by their pitch as since they don't know anything, they're just pretty much just responding to, vibes. And it doesn't seem like they love the idea of sending DNA into an agency, which hopefully at one point they reference like, oh, well, this is just 23andMe. But I guess they do have the stated goal of like looking only for mutants and then also that they will help you manage your powers. And by manage, I mean eliminate those powers. But in a fun way to tell the reader what's going on, they're like, hey, you tell us your mission statement. So Xenos's mission is simple enough. Everyone wants to be their best. Verate helps them get there. Skin won't clear up, want to shed a few pounds, haunted by anxiety, trouble making friends. Society tells us that these problems live in us, but the solution does too. Verate uses personalized analysis to help us be the us we want to be. And my dream is to help the whole world from birth. Crazy dream, I know. Most of the good ones are. And then May's just like, what do you mean by personal analysis? And so they start tearing like the app apart. And since this is the ongoing arc, like, it's like, well, this we're gonna understand the motivations. So Xenos goes, a fully custom bioinformed cognitive behavior and psychological optimization portfolio. And May's like, bioinformed by, and they're like, oh, yeah, the DNA. Like, we're not great about this. And he's just like, you did read the brief, right? And they're like, punching holes again. And Pretty being a smart marketing analysis, and I think that's what her goal is, quickly sees that, they're probably criticizing too much. It's like, oh, they actually got other things to do. And then they leave, and there's an origami in the table, which is like, well, who made that? Oh, Xenos did. Which is just interesting because issue one had a Lockheed origami, so it's like, oh, that's interesting. And actually, Preacher got I hope I'm pronouncing that name correctly. Uh, the ladies out, but Axel stood behind as he has some more questions, as he also has a physical mutation, and so these two are able to relate, which is nice. So the ladies don't love how Axel is um considering the app, and so he's trying to defend it, and they're just like, well, all right, well, we're gonna move on to other things. Then the next day, we see Axel and Xenos are on, just walking around when they get held up. And Axel's able to turn his emotion powers to calm the muggers down. And he's also his, physical strength. He's able to take away their unarm them. I was like, is there a word for when you take weapons away? He's like, yeah, there is. And then these two reveal that, they're scared and they're just wanting money to get by and start hugging it out. And it's like, all right. There's also a comment here about how Xenos needed his tablet as he hadn't updated everything into the cloud. And then later that evening, we see um, Axel has two younger siblings and a dead father. So far we've seen that Bronze lives with her grandmother. Melee has either I'm pretty sure it's just two younger brothers, but one's like, she's 18 and the other one's 14, and then the younger brother's like 4. And I want to say both parents, and then we see Axel at least has two siblings and a father. But it's just like, oh yeah, here's all the details we learned from them. And we get to one of my favorite parts of the issue. The next day, Kitty and Nina are on a date. Looks like they both got ice cream. They're holding hands. So it was very cute. And Nina's like, "Oh, I forgot to mention my grandma's 90th birthday party's on Saturday. Want to come? Lots of good food, dancing, family stuff." And why are you looking at me like that? What? Sorry, Nina. I love to send me the details. Will do. Talk later. And then Nina kisses her on the cheek, and it's like, oh. Then we see Kitty and Emma talking. She's like, "You're on cloud nine. Did some kind of local sports team accomplish something?" I'm like, "Oh, Emma, you're such a delight." No, Emma, are we capable of normalcy? Can we be with normal people? Are we poison? And Emma's like, I'm not the right one to ask, Catherine Pride. But it's like, oh, because my initial thoughts like, oh no, in Grandma's 90th party, if Kitty goes there, some radical is going to attack, and then poor Grandma's going to get injured, and there goes their relationship. But it's just a slowly built relationship, so that's just fun. So the students come in, they talk about vertebrae, and Axel's keeping the company line, and they're like, wow, good job learning the talking points. And he's like, listen, I like the idea. Like, I have a physical mutation, it's just defending it. And then Kitty's quick to be like, okay, okay, Alex, I'm glad you like your work, but a private company collecting people's DNA is a bad look for anybody. And for mutants, it's really, really bad. He could be building a registry, or then Axel like defends it, and they're just like, but not all mutants have our well-being in mind, Alex. The world is. And so it's getting very heated. Emma's like, take a breath, Kitty. And it's like, and Kitty does have her hair in a cute little, it's not pigtail, I guess it's a French braid. I don't know hairstyles. I don't know, what am I doing? Then poor Axel is just like, well, maybe you've just been dealing with bad people who do, um, who, collect mutant DNA, but maybe this time they're good guys. And we see across town, Xenos has invited the would-be muggers to his studio, his firm, as they're signing up to do something. And that is the cliffhanger. And then we get to the letters page where, dear reader, no, I'm the reader. Dear listener, you, ugh, I had a clever way I was going to do this, but I got my second letter printed in one of these comics, with X-Men 11 and now Exceptional X-Men 6. And because I'm John Klein III from Helena, Montana, and that's super fun to see. Now I just really need to get a letter, and um Magic's ongoing. Now I got my trifecta of my favorite titles. And yeah, if you have that handy. And then I got a letter printed back in the day in a Deadpool comic that I really should have memorized. And I should go through that box one of these days. But yeah, and it's just me praising so much about how much I love the creative team. And then I reference how I would love to see Lockheed in the books, like, hey, and I forget who Martin is. Well, the editor, Martin. And he's just like, I've plugged in these pages before, John, but if you haven't checked out Lockheed's Marvel Unlimited series yet, it's waiting for you. And I'm just like, oh, buddy, of course I'm quite familiar with the Lockheed digital comic. Like, I'm waiting for the printed version to come out, hopefully one day soon. But that is Exceptional X-Men 5. So let's get into Captain America Steve Rogers 5. Fun coincidence there. Brr, 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 brr. Which if you follow me on YouTube or TikTok at Jacko SII, You can follow along with me highlighting the comic as well as posting the panel from the book. This is a Civil War II tie-in. It's also during the uh, controversial Hydra Cap era. This came out in November 2016. The inside cover ad is promoting the 75th anniversary of M&M's. So that's interesting. So, what, Marvel's 5 years older than M&M's at all times? Super Soldier, Avenger, Agent of Hydra, he is Steve Rogers, Captain America. Though it says it on the cover too, but apparently it's officially Captain America Steve Rogers, so they flip it around. Steve Rogers' reality has been secretly rewritten by the sentient cosmic cube named Kubrick, who was acting under the influence of the Red Skull. Now, because a Hydra agent named Eliza Sinclair saw Steve's potential and recruited him as a young boy, Steve is fully committed to Hydra, but not to the Red Skull. Steve went behind the Red Skull's back to secure a secret lab for Dr. Eric Sivig, a cosmic cube expert, and uncover Hydra's agent whom Steve was supposed to kill. His goal? Restore Hydra to its true ideals by assassinating the Red Skull. Nick Spencer is the writer, Javier Pina is the artist, Rochelle Rosenberg is the color artist, so you know this comic looks amazing. VC's Joe Caramanga is the letter, and the cover's by Paul Renaud. And I'm pretty sure I got the traditional cover. And Captain America created by Joe Simon, Jack Kirby, which is fun. So in 1926, we see a young Steve being driven by, what was her name? Elisa Sinclair. And the driver is annoyed by just young Steve. And this is Steve, like maybe, if Walker is 11. This kid looks like he's 6, maybe. And, he wants to see his mother because the last time he saw his mother, her hand was on the floor with the door slowly closing. So he's quite concerned for her, but Elise is telling him to not worry about it. And then they're being driven to Daniel Whitehall, which you remember Agents of Shield. He was one of the guys, one of the Hydra scientists, but in the present day. Um, Played by one of the actors from Franklin and Bash, like the stick up his butt attorney, that guy. And then Dr. Sebastian Fenhoff, and they're gonna study Cap. There's an ad here from Marvel Legends series, the build of figures Juggernaut, which came with a Kitty Pryde and Loki that I adore, one of my favorite figures. And then we see current day Sokovia as Red Skull's following a present day mission, and Rogers is narrating. We all have plans, of course. The map that led from our hopes and dreams to reality. The steps you take to reach our goals. The best plans consider every obstacle, every pitfall, an answer for every question. They're guided through love and care and undivided attention. I want to say this takes place. Oh man, an editor note would have been pretty handy here about what issue of. It's around issue 5 because this is going to tie in with last week's secret. Nope. Civil War 2, issue 5, which I guess this must have started right when Civil War 2 started, huh? And so we see the superhero party where everyone's having fun. She-Hulk is arm wrestling Jane Forster. Captain Marvel standing behind her. They're, they close off every eventuality until all that remains is a prize. They focus on that and preclude everything else, refusing failure, even the slightest opening. But the world's complicated, dangerous place. And we see Beast is hanging out with the Inhumans, Medusa, and the fish guy. And no matter the plans we make, there's no accounting for everything, rest assured. And then Steve enters a room with Tony Spider-Man, the Parker one. I think, well, I don't want to say. Captain Marvel, and some other guy in the Medusa's in that room as well. Something will always go wrong. And the Medusa introduces Ulysses, who's the Inhuman who can predict the future. And Carol mentions how she's already used one of his visions to prevent a crime, and Tony's already concerned about it. And then Steve, behind his back, which is very impressive, texts stand down. And Steve's talking to Dr. Sylvig, who I think is the guy from the Thor movies, right? Skarsgård. And so they're not sure how to handle a prenog. And so, they need more data. And then we see Captain Marvel and She-Hulk and Monica Rambeau, the captains Marvel, are attacking Thor, or not Thor, Thanos. And then we see New Atlantean, home of the Inhumans, as Steve is there, and he's about to kill Luis when he sees Iron Man's already in there. Medusa giving him a warning, his last warning to go home. And so this gives Rogers an idea of what to do next. And we see in Utah, Bruce Banner's there. He's getting an envelope, which has a letter stating, "Dear Dr. Banner, as a longtime admirer of your work and a fellow scientist, I felt an obligation to share with you my recent findings, which I believe portend to a major breakthrough in a field of great interest to us both. The cure for gamma-irradiated mutations, or Hulks as they have come to be known," which is just a weird way to be like, I don't know if you're familiar with it. "While the final breakthrough remains frustrating and elusive to me, I believe an expert such as yourself might be able to finish what I've begun. So I have enclosed my research in the hopes that it might help start us down a road, one that frees you and others from this terrible curse. Good luck, Dr. Banner. I hope you find the peace you richly deserve. Yours, an anomalous friend." And he gets a flash drive and puts it in. Rogers narrates so many variables, so many possibilities, but even still, I'm not the least bit shocked by how even the slightest push leads you to go easily down the darkest road, death. As we see, Hawkeye has killed Banner. Distrust, as we see Murdoch defending Hawkeye. Rage, as She-Hulk is now Rage She-Hulk. Because she killed War Machine, right? Yeah. Arrogance, as Iron Man's confronting Hawkeye, maybe? Weakness, Beast and the Inhumans. It all comes so easy to you. Do you want to know why? I can tell you the secrets, because you hated each other all along. War is your natural state. And then we see an email from Carol to Steve, who's commanding the Alpha flight right now. "Steve, you're going to hear some things. Here are the facts. At 1300 hours, Ulysses had a vision of a coordinated Hydra plot to infiltrate and destroy the world's financial institutions. The vision led directly to the arrest of one person, a financial services manager named Allison Green. People are going to say we went too far. They're going to say we are wrong. I just want you to know we're not. I've questioned this woman myself, and I'm sure the kid is right." And then Steve's like, "Except one problem, she never worked for Hydra." So clearly Ulysses has some failures with his vision. And so they're thinking they can use this to their advantage. And then we see Cap has taken off his shirt and he has a big chest Hydra tattoo on him. As the Red Skull gives him some commands, so we know he resents those commands, as the Red Skull is very gross. And then back in the flashback, uh, which doctor was this? One of the doctors is complaining about how young Steve is too weak and wily and he won't be any use to them. And so she makes him, oh yeah, fin off, makes him start choking on his own blood and tells her that she has a good feeling about this Steve Rogers and he's going to be okay. And then we get to like the last page where we get to finally the panel where I bought this comic for, where it's Kitty versus Vision that we saw in Civil War 2:5. A way to end all those pointless, reckless violence. A way to bring peace. A way to bring order to a broken world. But I like it. But I said before, the world's a complicated, dangerous place. And it loves chaos. So why then should I be so surprised to learn The world has its own plans for me. As we see the repeated image of Miles Morales Spider-Man throwing Captain America through a broken, I don't know, piece of concrete or something, right, running him right through, where he'd be dead. So yeah, I only own this for the one panel. Actually, now I'm thinking, looking at this, could it be? I wonder if I should extend this panel because I can't tell if this is Kitty's butt or not. Maybe not because from the top panel she doesn't have a back pocket. In this panel, clearly there is some type of utility belt situation. So no, I think I've read it correctly. Oh, and Parent Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. is having their Ghost Rider season. That was pretty legit. That, everyone, was Steve Rogers' Captain America 5. Nope. Captain America Steve Rogers 5. It doesn't really matter. And I got my copy from Mile High Comics. Apparently, it's a very good edition, but I could not tell anything wrong with it. Oh yeah, this comic would have cost $3.99 back in the day and is rated T plus. So let's get into what came out last week. And so let's see here. So it's this quick reviews, everyone, and once again, spoilers for all these comics. Aliens versus Avengers 3, which I was losing a lot of interest in, and I barely read the first issue or first two issues, but we finally got X-Men content in it, as we see an very old man Logan, but not old man Logan, so I don't even know why I led with that. And an older Emma Frost, naturally. I want to say Iceman too, and they're just helping the Avengers fight, aliens. And the ugh, Red Shirt Cinema just revealed all the alien movies and whatever those watchers are called from. Ugh, this is me not knowing enough about aliens new movies. But the scientists that created the aliens, those guys. And then Laura Kinney Wolverine 3, which issue 2 was so much fun, and 3 just didn't have as much fun, but we still got plenty of Daredevil Wolverine content. So that was pretty nice. Um, Mystique 5 felt like a concluding chapter of a detective novel where pretty much we're just told all the answers in the final issue. And Mystique was tricking Fury Jr. into revealing what everything the Shield knew about Mystique's operations so that then she can tie up all those loose ends. So they will find a warehouse of hers. She will destroy that warehouse. They will find allies they suspect she had, and then she proved that those were not allies of hers. And it turns out Mystique, that power upgrade Fabian Cortez gave her, had a dire consequence, and now she's like a little, I was gonna say mutated, but that's probably a poor choice of words, but she just is a bit deformed now. Like she looks very much her older age, and Destiny's just gonna take care of her now. NYX 8, which I thought was a darn near perfect comic, and it turns out because the May solicitations came out and NYX nor X Force are listed, so they clearly end the month in April at their issue 10. And X Factor at least seems like their issue 10 is their final mission, so maybe they were told ahead of time, like, hey, wrap this nonsense up. But NYX 8 had Laura confronting um the Krakoan, or Hellion. And first, it's very heated between the two of them, and then they all calm down, and Laura and Hellion have a nice heart to heart, and they just talk through it, and it was just great character work, and I loved it. Any other week it would be my comic of the week, but Exceptional X-Men 5 came out, so there you go. Um, and then Storm 5, which I will also say 4 was such a great issue, and then 5 didn't have as much fun as Infinity has taken over Storm's body. as Storm died. And then Doom pretty much is just like loses all interest in the situation, and Infinity Storm's like, I'm gonna kill you. And he's like, you're not gonna get that close because as soon as you attempt it, Storm's gonna take over her body to prevent it. And then that pretty much happens. There's a lot of cosmic elements that I'm just like, I like Marvel Cosmic, but I don't seek it out. Usually when it's forced upon me, I'm just like, well, like anything forced upon you, it's not a great experience. Amazing Spider-Man 68. Um, Spider-Man sees a Peter Parker sees a vision on May dying, and finally he's like, "Oh, I should get involved now," which seems weird. Like it had to get personal for him to be get involved again, and so then he dons his new armor look, which pretty much just looks like the Web of Spider-Man classic spider armor, the all gray one, but with a cool red scarf. I don't know, it sort of works for me. If there was a Marvel Legends of it, I might be tempted to be tempted by it. Be willing to be tempted to get it. Um, and then pretty much the world freezes. Magic puts up a good fight, but I think she barely even says some words. I think she checks on Juggernaut at one point. And then the children of Sidorak take Spider-Man to an alternate dimension, or part where the Sidorak is, and then one of them kills Spider-Man. And the story arc is called Eight Deaths, so I don't know if this is, the eighth death or not, but he's definitely died a couple of times prior to this. So that's interesting. Ultimate Wolverine 2, which I will admit I was wrong. There was not a final page reveal of Kitty Pryde and Gambit, so they are clearly going to be in issue 3. And then we've seen the issue 4 solicitation stating, they're going to deal with the fallout of that, which hopefully does not mean Kitty Pryde dies in 3 because they killed Kurt off in the first issue, and that was highly disappointing. And Mystique too, now that I'm talking. Team Blue. But pretty much they are testing their new Winter Soldier. Um, we see Colossus and Magic, or Colossus in the throne chair with Magic too, like standing up with Omega Red on either side of him. Which is weird, as we've seen Magic be in the leadership position when there's superheroes involved. So I wonder if there is like a separation of duties, like, hey, when there's other supers, Magic's in charge, and then when it's more scientist level stuff, Colossus is in charge, or who knows how it works. Oh, this issue started the Maker, that one scientist, is it Cornelius who does all that research on Logan? Maker takes him out pretty early, which I wonder if that how the Maker decided in this new universe, Ultimate Universe, I think it's 6160, right? Yeah. And which I always found was interesting because the original Ultimate Universe was like 1660, and now they just moved the one over, and so now it's 6160. Um, I could be wrong on those. But it's just like, oh, I wonder if this is how the maker decided to push mutant um collective back a couple years to not be an issue for him by taking out the scientists, because we haven't seen Xavier, Magneto, or Dr. McTaggart yet. And so it's like, oh, well, I wonder if that's why Ultimate X-Men, they've been slow to unite with each other because they don't know to even worry about mutations. And so they're testing out Ultimate Winter Soldier, and so he's just fighting like 8 soldiers, and it's like, all right. And that's not my interest in my ideal Wolverine's story, solo story would be him with a buddy, and so him in the woods fighting soldiers. It's just not my ideal Wolverine story. But we get some magic content in there, so that was nice. Uncanny X-Men 10. There's a lot of comics last week, everyone. Um, the Outliers were fighting the Wolf Sentinels, or the wolf-shaped Sentinels. And we see Jitter bring Death Dream back using adrenaline. So we don't know if Death Dream will be able to resurrect himself, like his name would imply. Colicchio decides that if she has to die to save her friends, then she's going to do that, which was just a moment of bravery to see her. Um, and then Ransom helps out too until finally Logan and Jubilee can show up. And the issue starts off with Nightcrawler, the mother he saved in a couple issues before Raid of. Oh yeah, the issue right before Raid on Grey Malkin crossover happened, which I thought he shoved her too hard, but turns out just hard enough because she heard his German accent. It was like, I'm gonna treat you to all these German desserts I made. And then she made him a cute little hat. And so I'm ready to ship these two so much. Um, and though some people apparently thought he was retiring, and I don't think that's the direction they're going in. But yeah. So it'd be cute of Kurt to start dating mother two in Louisiana. Why not? And oh yeah, and then the issue ends with Gambit and Rogue having a cute couple moment, and then someone from Gambit's past is going to mess with them. So it's like, all right. Oh, and then Warden Ellis is upset with the people who sent the wolf-shaped sentinels after the Outliers, and especially as they failed. And so she like eliminates the Sentinel program or that Sentinel program. Oh, and we also see that Death Dream's able to eliminate life. So like he detects there's actually living dog DNA in those wolves, and it's just like shuts it down. So it's like, all right. Weapon X-Men 1, I guess Volume 2, number 1. We get the legendary Joe Casey, and then also legendary in his own right, Crisscross from the 90s. With this all men male team of X-Men, which I'm like, this team could use a woman on it. And the team is Cable, which Joe Casey's my favorite Cable writer. With the artist run Ladrone on is my favorite Cable run. Really like young Cable during the Krakoan era. Volume 4 that one was. It's Cable, Deadpool, naturally, Wolverine, Logan, Chamber for some of the hijinks, him the character I'm most attached to on this team. And then they're fighting Thunderbird, which is just nice to see that Thunderbird hasn't been forgotten about. And I really like this Deadpool because there's times where like I don't know if I outgrew Deadpool or I'm not doing my job of staying on top of current trends. But so a lot of Deadpool comics is like I don't know what that reference is. But this time he was making a bunch of references I got, and so I was like, hey, this is a Deadpool I can relate to and appreciate the humor. And he names them Weapon X-Men, so that's fun. He even breaks the fourth wall and talks about Hickman and Claremont and um there's a couple other creators that I was like, all right. Oh, Morrison, and how none of them came up with the idea of Weapon X-Men. So, all right. And then X Factor 7, uh, Angel took a team to Latveria to investigate an element of Doctor Doom's plan. And one of my top 10 characters, number 10 himself, Forget Me Not, shows up. And immediately, I like this comic so much more than because it was literally on the verge of like, I think I got all my Dr. Cecilia Reyes and Pyro content I was going to be cool with. But now Forget Me Not's on the team, and naturally, 3 issues later, like the title's going to end. So it's like, dang it. 'Cause I was keep meaning to make a joke about like, hey, well, what title do you think Forget Me Not's secretly on? And I was going to always say he's on X-Force standing right behind Tank, who's blocking the view. And so yeah. So yeah. And it's pretty much a rescue a mission that goes wrong because that's X Factor's whole business. And then Forget Me Not's on the rescue the pilot to fly them there and fly them back. So yeah, pretty good story. And finally, X-Force 8, which it's I don't know, is there a fancy word for second to last? Because there's penultimate and then there's ultimate issue. Um, And we get some Rachel Betsy content, which apparently we've already got told that Rachel is going to the Phoenix title, which is like makes sense. Which we already know Jean's not gonna love that because she barely can tolerate Rachel, which is a shame. Is of the two Phoenixes is Phoenix Eye? Phoenixes neither of those feel right. Of the ladies Phoenix, I'm always more of a Rachel fan. And then Teen Jean, I guess. And then Jean. If we're not putting Madeline before any of them. Because then it'd be Rachel, Madeline, Teen Jean, Jean. And like they're doing a mission where I don't know, I guess I mean this is the cast of characters you pick, but any mission story where you're depending on Forge to be the cavalry to show up and turn the tide, it's just like that's not a comic for me. And so, you know, oh yeah, and there's a Colossus there, and then a lady musician who's controlling Colossus. I don't know. So they lost me a bunch with this comic, but at least we got some Rachel Betsy content, and that's what I'm here for. Oh, and we see Sage is um working on something. Oh, she's trying to heal enough to rejoin the mission, and we find out her real name, which I should look up right now. So we find out her real name is Teresia Tariskic. So that's fun. So Tessa is short for something. It's not just something Shaw was like, I'm gonna call you Tessa and I deal with it. And so, yeah, so pretty great comics. So Exceptional X-Men 6, NYX 8, Ultimate Wolverine 2, Glory Kinney 3, Uncanny X-Men 10, Weapon X 1. I don't know what I'm doing. I guess I was naming my favorite comics of the week. Um, and so let's see what comics come out on Wednesday. Brr, 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 brr. So we have Hellhunters 3, which I've been really liking the series. Wolverine 3, which we are from the Mace Lits, we're leading up to a Hell Hulk, which does look like just a Red Hulk. Or I guess now that I'm thinking about it, the Hulk from Midnight Suns, like he had horns. Maybe it's just the Midnight Horns Hulk. Iron Man 5, which I think we might be done tracking Iron Man 5 for Emma Frost references. Rogue Savage Land 2, which issue 1 was pretty cute against all odds of all the variant cheesecake covers thinking otherwise. Sabretooth Dead Don't Talk 3, which I didn't even read issue 2, so, but that's out there if you're Sabretooth inclined. Sentinels 5, which I believe is the final issue. Amazing Spider-Man 68, which I believe is actually 68 Point Death, which is confusing, but Magic's on the cover of it, so we must, still be tracking it. EVA 3, which number one was such a great comic, and then issue 2 was a real step down for me, which I would admit it was all the TVA content where all I want to keep following Gambit and Jimmy Howlett from the original Ultimate Universe, and not so much the TVA element. So clearly, I'm the wrong audience for this. Oh, speaking of which, Miles Morales is going to be part of a Ultimate crossover where he's coming to the new Ultimate Universe with the Maker. And I had to be reminded, like, oh yeah, Jimmy Hudson's around too. Like, it'd be nice if he could join, especially as he's part of TVA. There's no reason why he shouldn't be able to go. And it'd be nice to get all three current people from the original Ultimate Universe into the new universe. Like, come on. It's just fun to me. We have Ultimate X-Men 12, which it's 12 issues, so it's a year's worth of issues. And so I'm pretty sure this is going to be a dramatic issue, a milestone issue. Then we have West Coast Avengers 4, which we're reading for Firestar content and Spider-Woman. They're still in the midst of Ultron nonsense, I want to say. And then X-Men 12, which ideally have the magic content we crave. So X-Men 12, Amazing Spider-Man 68, Rogue Savage Land 2, Hellhunters 3, West Coast Avengers 4, Ultimate X-Men 12. Was that five? I was trying to do the top five. I probably should tell you, dear listener, what my goals are and what we're doing. But yeah, so thank you so much for listening to episode 165 of Shadow and Flame with Magic. Thank you for listening. If you ask a friend to listen and subscribe, try and get those numbers up. Though numbers are up, so I'm very thankful to you, dear listeners. And you can follow me on most socials at Jacko SII and the podcast at SNFWM, where I'm going to post this Captain America Steve Rogers 5 images, prior to the cover in that one panel. And I will talk to you next time. Thanks for listening. Bye.